Hey guys, this is Neek and Rest, and this is She Wolf Alchemy. Today we're talking about emotional avoidance.
Yes, so emotional avoidance, essentially what we mean by that is when you are doing things specifically to avoid feeling an uncomfortable emotion. This would be emotions like fear, this would be emotions like abandonment, this would be emotions of extreme sadness, things such as that. And emotional avoidance is like kind of when you're like, yeah, no. This is something I know bothers me, so I just won't think about it. I will just avoid the subject altogether. I won't even allow my mind to go there. It's like having a denial about a emotion in a subject and just kind of completely blocking it out of your space, the way you operate. It's just like completely blocking out a particular feeling. And sometimes that particular feeling is attached to very specific events or situation. So this can look like procrastination. You have something that you need to do, but it is a emotional trigger for you. You might just keep putting it off and putting it off as a way of not having to deal with it or think about it. For some people, they can become really passive aggressive when the conversation is brought up as a way to kind of, I guess, keep other people from bringing up that particular topic, that particular thing that triggers them, that triggers that feeling. So, with that said, now that we've broken it down, Neek, do you think emotional avoidance plays a part in your life?
Yes, yeah, I do. It can play a part in sometimes in like work life, friendship, romantic relationships, and even sometimes relationships like with my daughter, just trying to build those. Sometimes I avoid things with that. So yeah, sometimes I had to step away from that.
That's a whole
Yeah.
thing. That's a whole thing. If you
What
have kids,
about
you
you?
know, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely, it definitely
Yeah.
plays, or it did. I think I'm getting a lot better. It's something I've been working on consistently, but it did for a long time. I believed in avoiding big feelings, just big feelings in general. And what I mean by that is just feelings that felt intense, whether it be intense sadness, intense anger, or intense happiness. I just did not like intense feelings at all. I really like playing it safe in the middle ground.
Mhm.
And so I definitely practice emotional avoidance in regards to anything that could make me feel too emotional. Like I try to avoid things that make me feel too much. So even if it was something that made me feel really extremely happy, I'm like, because that can be taken away. So I like things that I'm like, I can have an even kill kind of feel to it. Like, oh, this is cool. I can take it or leave it. Like for a long time, that's where I like to be. So I would avoid things that were on either side of the coin. If it wasn't the middle, I was cool. So
Yeah.
basically, what emotional avoidance is, it is a faulty coping mechanism, essentially. Like it's just you trying to cope, but in the worst way ever. Like it's coping, I guess, technically, but it's not a coping healthy tool because all coping is developing skills, developing tools to help you get through something. That's really all coping is. So when we have negative coping skills, it still has a purpose. Like it's still something you're doing to help you get through it. It's just not something that is good for you in the long run. Whatever you're doing, it's just not a good way of doing it. And when we are talking about avoiding whole feelings that are on the spectrum of what it is to be a human, like sadness, like anger, like hurt, unfortunately, like you are really chipping yourself out of the human experience by trying to avoid those. So, okay,
Yeah.
what does emotional avoidance look like for you? Like, what do you do? How do you know you are emotionally avoiding something? Like, what are the actual actions you are doing?
Like if it's something that I know that I really want,
Mm-hmm.
now I try to avoid picturing myself sometimes because I feel like it's going to be taken away. And I think that comes from trauma. Like, for example, say like when I was trying to get my house, and you know how I kept on saying like, well, probably won't get it anyway. I probably won't get it anyways. So I wasn't like I wasn't living in the moment trying to get there because I was kind of talking myself out of it just in case it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it is. I don't like. live in the moment. So I just stop and I try to like revert it with I might not get it so that I won't hurt my feelings in the long run.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's just
that
me trying to cope with getting, but it's not good because it's just like that stressed me out doing that. Like it was so stressful because I was just trying to like not let myself down because I for some reason have a feeling that good stuff doesn't happen to me.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, that goes into what I was saying about the feeling big feelings. Like on the happy side, that's why I didn't like feelings that felt too big on the happy side, because it was like, this is going to get taken away. It's going to hurt. So let me stay somewhere in the middle where like I'm happy, but like if it's taken away, I'm like, I mean, that's cool. You know, ain't no dust off my
Yeah.
shoulder type of feeling.
I guess it's
And
the exact same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And same thing for you. I think it's just life experiences have made me that way. Where, and I've talked about this before in my childhood. And I did have a great childhood. I just had a lot of things going on in my childhood. And there was always something from the age of like 6 until I left for college. It just felt like there was always something. And I know that's kind of life, but for me, it was always big things. Like it was always like, oh, things are happy. Then it was like, oh, my parents are divorcing. And then it was like, okay, but things are happy. And then it's like, oh, I have to move to Mexico. Which is, when you move a child to a new country, please sit them down and have conversations. Like I was young, I was like 7, and no one explained to me like you're about to live in a new country. I had to figure that out as a 7-year-old. And 7-year-olds, we figure things out in the weirdest ways. Sometimes I look back at some of the stuff I used to think when I was like living there, and I'm like, no wonder I was miserable because nobody set me down. Like I found out about race the first time when I lived out the country as 7 years old because no one had ever talked to me about race before. I had no idea it was a thing. Like I knew not everybody was my color. I just didn't know it mattered to some people. And then when I turned 7 and found out it was a big thing. And then also no one like broke, and it, as a 7-year-old, you don't come home and be like, hey, I think people don't like me because I'm brown. Like that's not how you understand it. You're just like, I used to be like really popular back home. And like here they don't like me, but it's like for no reason. And I'm not sure why. They say I'm different, but like technically we're all different. I really don't know what's happening, Dad. If you could just explain to me what's happening. But he didn't because, that's my dad. But in my childhood, it was always big things like that.
Would be too much.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That would be too much for me. In middle school or adult, I didn't want to go from Trotwood to Dayton. So you just want to go from
no. But you know what? It's so funny we're talking about this now because I was talking to my mom about a situation that happened like 2 years ago. But like one of the things I say now is like I'm just getting back into traveling, and even so, like I'm a very 5-day type person. Like after 5 day, I get mean. Like I like being home. I like being comfortable. I like being around surroundings I know. But for a long time in my 20s, I went through a period of like from 25 until like 30 where I really didn't travel much, and people would always be like, oh man, you gotta travel, you gotta get your passport and blah blah blah. And I'll have to explain, like, first of all, I had 3 passports fully booked by the time I was age 12 because my dad was a diplomat. And when you're little and you travel like that, it really messes with your sense of stability. And maybe not for everybody, but for me, it did. And it made it very hard for me, which I'm sure ties into the emotional avoidance stuff we're talking about now. It made it very hard for me to feel stable with places. It made it very hard for me to stay in one place. Like, I've been in Atlanta for what, 8 years now? I have lived in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have lived in 6 different places in 8 years. And it's because I don't know why. If I stay in a place too long, it messes with me and I just feel the need to up and move. Like, and that's just who I am. And that's me. Like, I up and moved to Atlanta. Like, I just randomly one day was like, you know what? I don't want to be here.
Like, when I was there over the weekend, I was just like walking, and all of a sudden I just thought about you. Like, Chris really just picked up and moved here. Like, I can't believe, like, that just crossed my mind. Yeah. Like, but the thing is, she really likes to move a lot. I don't know why this all crossed my mind. Like, I be having random thoughts. I was just looking around like, But Chris actually just picked up and
I
moved her out
did.
of nowhere,
I
and she's still
did.
here and doing it and thriving. Like that's crazy. Like,
Yeah, but you know what
that's
that
not
cup?
like
No, I was just laughing with you. Like, yo, no, I did. I have a child now, so it has settled down. I just move around Atlanta now, but she's about to enter school age. I mean, she's in pre-K, but like once she gets like elementary, middle school, I can't do that. Like, I have to pick a school district and keep her there. I can't just be like, you know what, mommy saw a new house that looks
right.
way better, so we're gonna go here. But a lot of that does go back to my childhood because I moved a lot in my childhood. And sometimes it was in the same city. There was one city like where I went to high school where we had one, two, three, four. We had four different houses between the time I was in the seventh, eighth grade and the time I graduated high school. So that's in a 5 year period. And it was all in the same city. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why they collected
Mm-hmm.
houses like Pokemon cards. I don't know. Didn't ask questions. But again, for me, I think that's a big part of why it's really hard for me to stay in one place for long periods of time. And then not just in like where I live physically, that's me with hobbies. That's me with a whole bunch of other things. We don't need to get into that. But it's very hard for me to stay with anything too long. I get really restless of things easily and be like,
Mm-hmm.
it's time for something new. Um, what were we talking
Yeah.
about? Hold on. Where was I going with this? Who are we?
How did we get there?
How do, where is the map so I can go backwards and take a left? Oh, yes. So what it looks like me, that's what we were talking about. What emotional avoidance looks like for me. Emotional avoidance for me is getting up and go. When you see me get up and just go, literally, there was something I don't want to get into, but I was talking to my therapist about, and I was like, yeah, I changed my mind on this, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, what happened? I was like, what you mean what happened? He was like, no, because he was like, you be getting triggered and then you just up and leave and decided to go on new life paths. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I mean, I knew that. I didn't know you picked up on it. I thought I was doing a much better job at concealing that. So for me, that's what it looks like for me. I will get up and go. Y'all who have listened to the earlier episodes know that was like an ongoing joke about dating. Like, I will leave you anywhere. Like, I will change my mind about how I feel about the situation right there and go. But it's like that for me in a lot of different areas of my life. So that's what it looks like for me. I'm not really big on procrastination. And not to say I don't procrastinate, I do, but it's usually not an emotional avoidance thing. It's usually just me being lazy. But if you see me all of a sudden just be like, I'm done with this, that's when you need to be like, so what happened? Which trigger set you off? There's no reason for you to be done. It's not finished. What happened? That is pretty much what it looks like for me.
Yeah, I think for me it's more of procrastination. Like for therapy, for instance, how many
Mm.
times have you told how many
Every
times have you kept telling me, like, okay, are you gonna I know I have to do it. And I know I'm trying to even get it for family. I'm trying to do family counseling. So
mm,
it's just like it's hard for me to do it because I might not want to have these feelings come out, or I might not want to go through that journey with my child. So we can, because I'm trying to get her into counseling also because of the loss of her father and how she's expressing it lately. So it's just like I know I have to do these things, but I just know it's going to bring out emotions that I've been trying to hide and run from. So mine is
mm.
procrastination from getting things done, going to the next step because I have to like come to terms with feelings and emotions.
Yeah. No,
So
when you said that, I was just like, The first thing you're like procrastination, I'm like, like therapy. That's the first thing I said in my head. It's like, like your therapy, because we've been talking about this for like a year now. But no, and say no, but same thing. I literally, and anytime we bring it up, is why I don't put. I try my hardest not to push anymore. I'm like, oh, you go. You're like, no, I didn't. They blah blah blah. Oh, girl, that's understandable. And I drop it and I change the subject. Because I was thinking too, like, you know what? That is probably like she's already have a lot of stuff going on. And she's probably like, I do not also need to bring these feelings up. Like, maybe when everything else is settled, I can bring up these feelings. But I was like, oh, maybe she's avoiding it
I mean,
because she's just like, it probably will help
it
you.
probably would have helped me stable them out, my feelings and emotions out.
hmm I think so.
I'd be feeling like I got a lot on my plate, but it probably would help me with the things on my plate, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think
But
It can do both. I think it can do
Yeah.
both. There's definitely, it can help iron out some things that will make just your everyday life better. But I think there are definitely some feelings that sometimes we're just not ready to completely address in that way. And it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be addressed. More so, it's like,
Yeah.
this is not the time. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to be like, hey, you know, like that meme of the dog in a house on fire, and they're like, this is fine. This is fine. Like, that's not the time to ask if I want to see fireworks. There's already a fire. I'm good. Let's talk about fireworks when I'm not in a burning house. So I think that's
Right.
fair. I think that's fair. I do think it would help though with some of the other stuff because you've had like a lot of stuff happen this year.
Mhm.
This has been a really busy year for you.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on that the other day too, because last year I didn't do as much. It seemed like I'm back to my same routine of going, going, going,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably need to slow down.
COVID had probably slowed things down. I know you. It's not
Yeah.
funny. I know you had to work through COVID in the office, but like I think still everybody else slowing down kind of helped us slow down as well. Because I definitely feel the same. Like last year was a lot,
Mm.
and last year was like horrible for me. But it still feel like things were slower versus this year. It feels like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, like this year just flew by.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my stuff has been with my family, but we still have been busy, and we had
Yeah.
some challenges too. This, with loss and
Mm-hmm.
misses and stuff. But most of mine has been around my family, but it still has been keeping me busy, super busy.
So like,
And
okay,
I'm
give
tired.
me an example. Okay, so this particular situation.
Wait, example of some of the stuff that I am avoiding.
Mm-hmm. It can be with family. You were talking about family, but if you wanted to talk about something else.
No, like the only thing that I was saying, I mean, the example was with the counseling is whatever,
Okay.
what I was avoiding. But I was saying, like, me staying busy. Yes, it's family stuff, and yes, I'm having a good time, but it's still me that I'm avoiding my emotions to like, I'm not dealing with my emotions that I have going on.
So even though it's like, even though I am doing family stuff and I want to do family, and it is, it's like I'm low key filling my time with that, so
And
I
it's
can
helping me.
avoid doing this.
Yeah, that's why it always crosses my mind every time I'm there. But I'm gonna shut up because you're gonna be like, I've been telling you that. It crosses my mind to stay there, but then I'm like, will this even help? Like, is it just for the moment? Because everybody has their own life when you actually move there.
Right, right. But I think it's more. I agree. I agree.
It's still take me away from like digesting it, seeing how I'm gonna fix it, and really coming to terms with my inner thoughts, instead of running away from them, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what my just like thoughts in my head and not processing them.
Yeah, yeah. No, that
They
makes
always come
sense.
back afterwards. Cause like, I mean, I was in a good mood. I'm still like on a high from being with my family and having a good time, but it
Hmm.
still like doesn't take away the things that I have to process that are going on to in my head and just going through.
And as you're talking, I was just thinking, like, you know what? I feel like for a lot of parents, mom and dads, it probably doesn't even feel like emotional avoidance when it comes to your family because it feels like, oh no, this is an obligation. This is something I have to do, and this is a part of my emotions or whatever. And I think as parents, sometimes we can get so caught up in it that we don't even recognize, like, hey, you're actually kind of using this to avoid deeper things that just involve you that you need to deal with. So I think when you're a mom, a
Mm-hmm.
dad, it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything
Mm-hmm.
else and then tell yourself you're selfish for not, if you wanted to take time away to think about something else. And then it's like you convince yourself, like, no, I don't need to
Yeah.
sit here and think
Yeah.
about these dark, deep feelings that keep popping up because I need to be present here with my child. And, they need me. So, of course, I'm going to sign up for, the PTA committee, neighborhood watch,
Mm-hmm.
and you did all these things because I have to
Exactly.
if I want to be a good parent. It's like, no, now at this point, your baby don't even want you there. Like, your baby's like, please stop taking me to basketball practice. I don't even like basketball. At some point there's a line that's crossed where it's like, no, at this point now you're using this as an excuse.
And then it's hard for you to even take time for yourself. Because
Yeah.
one of my friends just asked me randomly, like, "Oh, spend time with Journey." how about this weekend? She gave me a weekend, and then I was like, I was thankful for it, but then I just got overwhelmed. Like, okay, I really needed something for myself, but I don't even know what to do for myself. It's just, and that shouldn't even be a hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's
Like
a
I'm trying to figure
whole.
out, and she's literally giving me Friday through Sunday, and that's literally, and it's very hard for me to even figure that out, and I'm procrastinating doing that where I could probably just get him. Like I don't even like it's too much for me to even think that, and that's a problem. Like that's what I'm saying. I avoid everything else about myself to do everything for like family, even my child. Like you just said, that was a great example because right now I can't even figure out what to do for myself, and I have the time that I've been begging for.
Are you still
I
journaling
started back
though?
last week.
What are the things that you were saying though
Yeah, I
that you want
started
to
back last
do?
week.
Like you could do the stuff that you were actually supposed to do on your birthday that you didn't do. You could take that weekend to actually do that.
Yeah,
To actually go and get that massage, to actually go to the beach and sit
that
on the
is
sand
true.
with your journal,
That is true.
to, get a hotel room with a great view in a large tub, drink wine with, listen to Maxwell, whatever. I think for me, one of like my biggest examples of emotional avoidance is like definitely anything that triggers like a feeling of sadness, anger, or like abandonment. I will straight up avoid and I will like, and again, like I said, I will just straight up leave. Definitely done that relationships. I've definitely have dated people and things were going good, but all of a sudden I'm like, feelings are getting real, real high. And I am not 100% sure. So I rather just end it than take the risk. And I can't be specific because that's like 98% of the people I've dated. So pick a person. If you know me in real life, throw out a name. Probably. The answer is, yeah, probably him. That's definitely a thing for me. But even with like, for me, my job is a big thing. Like for a very long time, back to childhood stuff, like it was very important that I had to make certain grades. I had to do certain things. I had to, keep up a certain level. So when I was older, a part of me, when I would explain who I am and all of that to people, I would mention my job. I would mention my job, or I mention like education, things like that, and or like different activities like job related, advocacy related type stuff. And when I felt I was not at the top of the game in that, I would just leave. And it was because I felt like a failure. Like if I was not performing at like the level I felt I needed to perform at all times, it would trigger something big in me. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to be here. I feel in my spirit that the ancestors are saying it's time for me to leave. And it wasn't ancestors. It was like I got triggered. And instead of like sitting there and being like, hey, okay, you are not the best. You are not always going to perform at the same level. You're a human. You're going through a hard period and it's a hard job. That's okay. Or, even just recognizing like, yo, this, did you really give this your full effort? Things like that. Instead, I took it as like criticism on a job, as like a personal attack. And I felt like it was a personal attack on my character because I really believed that my job was a part of my personality, and it's not. But when you believe that that's something that is inherent to who you are, when people criticize that, you get really defensive because it's like, no, now they're challenging who you think you are as a person. And that's hard. Like if you think like if you think as a person, like I am inherently a good person, I am a kind person, and someone starts challenging you, it's triggering. And so for me, for a long time, like when I felt like I was not performing at this high level, that was a trigger. And I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to leave. It's time for me to go. And in the past, it was so easy for me to get up and leave. Especially jobs. They used to just be so easy for me. I don't know what's going on this year.
So they just keep hiring you like,
Girl. And
yeah,
then
you was like,
now.
this ain't it. I mean, I was like, how does she do that? Because I couldn't. I used to. He was like,
Yeah.
this ain't it. I'm like, okay. And you just get that job so fast. I'm like, well, maybe it's time for me
Girl.
to.
I don't know. This year it's not happening. And even as I'm saying this, though, I really do think I
I
will
think
be
it's my
leaving my
favorite
field.
this year.
I do think I will be leaving that. I really do think it is. I'm not supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like a triggering thing. It's just like, no, I no longer feel connected. I no longer feel passionate. It's not pain or anything. Now that I've learned the lesson of like, hey, this isn't a part of your personality. You're reacting out of triggerment and stuff like that. Triggerment, that's not a word. Uh, you're reacting out of being triggered. I feel like now that I learned the lesson, it's like, okay, now that you know that, sit there. Eventually we're gonna pull you in this other way. But now you just sit there because this is like literally the first time in my life, like you said, where like I have not been able to be like, I'm done and immediately have somewhere else to go. I don't know why. I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had a hard time finding a job. Like even when we were in undergrad, I had a job ready in March when we graduated in May. It's just never been a thing. And then this
Yeah.
year or this last year, it has been like everybody has been like, okay, with your little master's degree, that's cute. Anyways, 8 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's cool or whatever. Like all the things I think are impressive, people are just like, I mean, that's fine. So, yes, for me, definitely things that like trigger a feeling that I think challenge who I am for a long time. That's something I've been avoiding, but not for the last year and a half because I've been having to sit in with my feelings for the last year and a half. And it has been horrible. It has been horrible. It's not been fun. Like, I'm finally at a place now where I'm comfortable with it. And it's weird because I think
Mm-hmm.
last week I either called you or I text you and I was like, yeah, so I'm about to cry. And you're like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I cried earlier and I feel it coming back. So I'm just going to wait for it to pass and I'm going to cry and I'm going to be okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And that's where I am now, where I'm just like, oh, this thing is.
You haven't even been crying as much this year as you have last year.
Yeah, last year was a mess. Oh my gosh, last year was so horrible because we do have a lot of people that follow us that like astrology. Y'all, my Saturn return was last year. My Saturn return is supposed to end this month. So maybe that's why things are calming down and I'm not like as emotional. And now when emotions come up, I'm just like, yo, that's sad. Okay, let me be sad. All right, I decided I'm not sad anymore and we're gonna get back to work. Like that is where I am. So maybe it's because my Saturn return is ending. I hope so. Lord knows I hope so. Yeah, so it's been less, and I think I'm doing better at dealing with them. But last year, no. Last year was a mess. Last year was a mess. Last year, y'all, this is how bad last year was. I had to delete my Apple Music for a couple months last year because I kept being triggered by songs. By songs. Like, I don't even. If you ask what song, I'm gonna be like all of them because that's how it felt.
Weren't you just listening to like podcasts at that time and
Yes, yeah.
comedy, stand up comedy? Yeah.
Yeah, I went through like a whole 8 month period where when I got in the car, all I listened to was podcasts and comedy shows because I couldn't handle anything else. Like when I say I could not handle anything else, I mean like who is an artist that's like not deep, even the littlest bit? Like, like Waka Flocka could come on and I'd be like, I don't understand why they don't understand that he has hands. Like, no hands. I don't understand why no one else gets it. And it would just be a whole thing. And I thank you so much because I know the stuff I was sending you was BS. And you was just like, okay, I don't know what to tell you. It's gonna be okay. This is the third time today. I don't know what else to give
Yeah, I
to
was like,
you. It was, yeah, last year was.
I was there though, but
Yeah, no, because I feel like we had multiple conversations where you're like,
oh
Cross, I don't
no.
remember
Are you
you being
okay?
emotional. Like, I don't know what to do. This is the first time we have went through this together, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm finally feeling like I'm coming back down. Except for now,
You're
I allow those feelings to happen, and I just allow the moment to happen. And I'm like, okay, cool, cool. It's over, and we're gonna make it through the next one. All right. So, like, one of the things we're seeing is like on social media, you're seeing a lot of people promote emotional avoidance, not really realizing that it's what they're doing. And by this, I mean, you'll see a lot of people with the positive vibes only, no negativity around me. We're only doing happy thoughts, things like that. Only the highest auras, type things like that. You'll hear people say and promoting on social media. And like, it actually goes against like everything we know about psychology. Like everything we
Mhm.
know about psychology and all
Yeah.
the research we have done on emotions and feelings. And I know people aren't doing this on purpose because it sounds good to be like, yo, no, I don't want to be around negative stuff. Nobody does. And there are certain negative things that you shouldn't want to be around. People who are Debbie Downers that rain on your parade. Yeah, you shouldn't want to be around those. But actually, when you're like, no bad vibes, that is like, I'm avoiding things that make me sad or mad. And it's like, no, you have to feel the whole spectrum of human emotions to grow and develop as a human being. You just have to. There's no way around it. To cut off a whole side of the emotional spectrum, which is sadness, which is anger, which is defeatment, which is abandonment, which is lonely, which is sorrow, to cut that off, you are cutting off your growth and your development as a human being. When you do that, you are emotionally stunting yourself because we aren't meant to just be happy. Unfortunately, we do have to feel sadness and we have to learn how to navigate through sadness. As much as we don't like sadness and hurt and pain and sorrow and abandonment, all of those things, it does something, it does develop something in our character. And the truth of the matter is, it's always going to happen again.
Mhm.
Maybe not the thing, but that feeling is going to come up again.
Yeah.
And when you keep putting it off, as someone who put off a lot of those feelings for like 29 years, when you finally have to deal with it, it is a mess. It is a mess. I do not
Mhm.
recommend it. Like, I really wish this was things I learned to handle and feel and just be okay with understanding, like, hey, I have to be sad for a while. That's fine. Sadness is a thing. Let me feel the sadness. I wish I did that when I was younger because trying to learn that as an adult is very nerve wracking. It's really hard to
Yeah.
undo like 2 decades of stuff, almost 3 decades of stuff. And when that's what you're doing, when you
Mhm.
promote that, like, only high vibrations, only positivity, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, no, you have to go through all of them. As a matter of fact, anybody that's like big on like shadow work, that's what most of shadow work is. It's just going through all the negative stuff that you have been trying to avoid. That's what it is. You're good. Yep, nope. So it's always funny to me when I see people like post those like high vibrations, only good vibes, only happy thoughts, and then also like couple pages down, they'd be like shadow work. I'm like, girl, let me tell you, don't keep saying that because it will come for you. And shadow work is not fun. It is painful. It will change your life. So have you
I'm trying
saw
to
that?
understand shadow work. Are you trying to explain shadow work? Because I
Uh
don't
huh.
really get it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
really, with shadow work is kind of like me and you talked about Saturn return, right? Do you remember me bringing it up to you? And I was like, oh, it's around between ages 29 and 30. And you're like, yo, that's what I went through with everything with Zay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, with shadow work, though, it
Yeah.
is getting in touch with parts of yourself that are repressed. And for a lot of people that went through their Saturn return, that's for a lot of people, that's what a lot of their Saturn return was about. Even if it was about finances, even if it was about changing career or whatever, a lot of times it was about getting in touch with things of yourself that you need to change in order for you to grow and develop as a soul, as a spirit. And shadow work is like working with your unconscious dark side. Like all of us have a side that are our unconscious thoughts that shape how we act, how we behave, that shapes our behaviors and feelings. And shadow work is getting down to the root of those unconscious thoughts. So, like for me, it was
Mhm.
the whole avoiding emotions that weren't even killed, that were too high on either side. So for me, like the last year and a half, about to be 2 years, has been me literally having to feel all of those feelings that I unconsciously hid because I wasn't aware that I wasn't allowing myself to feel stuff. Like I wasn't conscious, like, yeah, I don't want to feel sad, so I'm
Mhm.
going to keep myself busy. I wasn't doing that. I was just keeping myself busy. That's how I always operated when things felt uncomfortable. And I didn't realize it. So for me, shadow work was diving into the why. Why do you not like feeling things? Why do you feel like it's not okay for you to have big feelings, even though that's what you studied for 6 years? And I had to get to the bottom of that. Okay, inner child wounds. Okay, what are some inner child wounds that I had to look into? And it was like, okay, well, some of the things I had to reflect on was like, okay, I did move a lot, and so I have an issue with stability. I have an issue with staying in places too long. And then that also goes back to like a bit fear of abandonment for me, because I always had to leave things, whether it was moving, whether it was going to a new
Right.
school. I always had to leave things. And so it's like now I have to sit there with myself and understand and work with myself on learning how to stay, learning how to work things through, learning how to
Mhm.
feel comfortable in stability, which was something I didn't feel comfortable in. And it was, for me, shadow work was also learning that, like recognizing you don't feel comfortable with stability. Why not? Why do you feel comfortable in chaos? Yeah, so shadow work is really getting into all that unconscious stuff about yourself that's holding you back, and working with that and to
Yeah.
working to heal those things. That's pretty much what it is. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think I understand it more, a little
Okay.
bit more. But you mentioned it a lot. I always was confused about exactly what it was, but I think I understand it more.
Okay. Yeah. Really just, yeah, because that's, it's been a lot. I would like to be done. I would like to do sun work now. I would like to do tanning work that involves beaches. That's the type of work I would
Yeah.
like to now work on. But yeah, so okay, have you been seeing that on social media? Like people that are just like the high vibes. We see that promoted a lot. Like no negative vibes. We
Yeah,
don't
I
do
have.
sad thoughts.
Actually, I was like, this is cool. I need to do that because I just be thinking negative and I need to like to think positive more. So I did find myself trying to just think positive. But in actuality, it should be like, okay, think positive, but also think about the different things that affect you, how they affect you. And let's figure that out too. Instead of like, let's just wash those away. Let's push those away and just think on positive. Like we got to get through the bad too. So
Yeah.
I did follow it, and I probably didn't even think twice about it until it was brought back up. But now thinking about it, it probably is messing with your mental. Like if you think you're supposed to think positive all the time and then it doesn't happen, now you're just like, okay, why isn't positive vibes following me, or why can I just be happy like everybody else? I guess it kind of make
Yeah.
a false reality. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I super agree with that. Because, like you, at
That's how
first, I
I
was
can
like,
see it. I guess.
oh, yeah. At first, like you, I thought, like, oh, no, this is great. Especially, like, if I was struggling with depression at the time, I'm like, you just don't think positively enough. And I would
Mm-hmm.
incorporate that even with like therapy, even with my own personal knowledge of how depression works. I kept trying to incorporate that, and it kind of gave me a feeling of like feeling defeated when I'm like I couldn't keep up with it. And it's like, because you're not supposed to. That's not how your brain
Mm-hmm.
works. That's why you can't keep up with it. I think there are some people that are more naturally like that, but if you're not, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with, I mean, and I know if it's nothing wrong, but you're supposed to allow yourself to feel those bad feelings and just learn to control them. But like you, yeah, I was seeing them all over the place. And at first I was just like, yeah, yeah, positive. That's all. Bad thoughts to this floor, sweep them under. And then, again, over time, you're just like, that's not working. Is it me? Is something wrong with me? It goes back to like the dangers of emotional regulation, which is one, you stunt yourself emotionally because you bypass important skills that you need to learn, like talking through things. You learn through skills like learning how to face diversity, face stress, and get through stress. You skip the process of learning to reframe situations. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn from actually just going through your feelings, that when you do the hell emotional avoidance thing, that you are cheating yourself out of the human experience, because you're not allowing yourself to feel everything you need to feel to, like, I guess, like your soul to feel more complete in this lifetime. I don't like that. But you're cheating yourself. You're cheating yourself by not allowing yourself to go through those ranges of emotion. But also, so I thought this was interesting. Research had actually shown that people that do emotional avoidance a lot, it actually messes with your memory long term. Like it has long term effects on your
Mm-hmm.
memory. And I wonder if it's because you spend so much energy trying to block out and avoid certain things that, like, it's kind of like a capacity thing. Like, you know how they say like our brains are like a computer, like you only have so much space to run certain programs. And it's like, if I'm too busy running this program, an anti blocker ad program, but it takes up so much of my space, now eventually I'm gonna have to delete something else to make sure I can keep running this program. Is that how it works, y'all? If that's not how computer works, I'm sorry. I don't do computers. I buy them and then I just expect the people to fix them when they break. I don't know if that's how computer work. I feel like as I'm talking, there's somebody like that. That's that's not how it works, right? I don't know where you got that information from, but that's not how computers work. That's how I think they work. And if that's how they work, I feel like that's how it works with memory. Like, it takes up so much of your conscious energy to try to purposely avoid certain emotions because you're spending so much energy doing that it affects your memory. That's not what they said, but they didn't explain it. They were just like, it messes with your memory anyways, and they moved on to the next thing. And I did research
And
it.
yeah, I think it could mess up your memory because you're like blocking so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like situations, sometimes thinking back, like not far back, but a lot of the stuff, like traumatic situations, I don't even remember the details. Or I mean, I guess you're not supposed to remember traumatic situations, but sometimes I don't even remember how I got out of situations. And I think it's because I blocked those memories because I'm just trying to, like, when you're just trying to think positive, or you just don't want to think about those things to process them. And you should process these things so that you know how to figure out when it comes up again, when situation comes up like that again.
Yeah.
But me not processing them, I don't remember a lot of stuff. And I kind of will say, since the loss of my late fiance, and so like a lot of stuff I don't remember, like in the moment, like some of that stuff is kind of like vague. And I think it's because it's just like just trying to wash away the bad moments, or I don't even remember, like, I don't know. It's just like a lot of stuff I don't have recollection of. And it probably is because of my avoidance, emotional avoidance.
Yeah.
And probably pregnancy too, but be brain too, but it's just like a lot of stuff. I'm like, why don't I remember that stuff like a lot?
Well, and you know what? Our brains actually do that naturally. Like, it is a part of, for a lot of people, survival, our brains will shut down or block. I mean, that's why we have the conscious and unconscious. There is a lot of stuff that our mind holds that is unconscious that we don't remember. And if someone will say something and it triggers a memory, you're like, where did that memory come from? Because our brain does that sometimes when something is perceived too harmful of a threat for you to remember, and your brain perceives it as, you cannot handle this. If you keep this in your memory, sometimes your brain will just block that, will just push that into your unconscious. It's kind of like how cognitive dissonance works as well. Cognitive dissonance is like, cognitive dissonance is like, you will have, if you have a belief in something, right? Let's say I believe, because I don't want to offend anybody with anything, but let's say I believe the sky is purple because one day I came outside and it was one of those pretty pink purple skies, and then I never came outside again. So in my head, I'm like, skies are purple. And I have that hardcore belief. And then someone comes to me and it's like, no, skies are usually blue. And I might argue against that. And they take my hand and pull me outside, and I see the sky is blue. And every day for like a month, they pull me outside and I see the sky is blue. And I still argue with them, no, it's purple. Cognitive dissonance is like that. It's, you have such a strong belief to something that your mind won't allow you to believe something else, even when presented with facts that show that your theory is wrong, your thought is wrong. Your mind won't allow you to. Your mind will literally block out facts and make the facts like not make sense to you. That's called cognitive dissonance, and it's kind of like that as well. They're just, our brains are such magnificent, beautiful things sometimes, because like, especially when you study the brain, our brain protects us for so much, but it definitely does that with trauma. There was a thing going on in the 90s about repressed memories. Was this the 90s or the 80s? 90s or 80s, where There was a big thing about repressed memories where people were all of a sudden becoming grown-ups and they will remember something from their childhood that was like really traumatic, and they'd be like, where in the world did that thought come from? And they psychologists were starting to be like, oh, that was a memory that was repressed and is now resurfacing. Something triggered you to resurface. And unfortunately, while repressed memories are a thing like with so many things, the criminal justice system took it and ruined it. And they start having people testified on crimes. Like there was a woman who testified against her father when she was a child. Her best friend went missing, and then they found the little girl deceased like a week later. And when she was like a grown woman, married with kids, her dad was like doing something with her mom, with her child, and a memory came forward of her seeing her dad with her best friend and her best friend not being alive. For some reason, whatever her dad was doing with her daughter triggered that memory, and it came back out of nowhere. She did not remember that at all. So, anyways, they used this woman to testify on case and almost got her father locked away. And then we had studies that came out and it was like, hey, our memories are like actually really horrible. And the older we get, the more our brain alters memory. So it's never really what we think. Anyways, what was happening at that time is there was like a frenzy going in psychology about repressed memories, and people were hearing about it all the time because it was being reported on so frequently. All of a sudden, around the country, everybody started having repressed memories. And what we end up finding out is that, hey, some of these are very wrong and factual. And we found out that that girl's father did not kill her best friend. That was not a thing. We don't know why that popped up in her head. And it's one of those things that changed. They were able to prove that he was innocent. Um, and I want to just bring that up. So if anybody has a repressed memory that comes up, just so you know, that doesn't mean it's 100% true. Sometimes our brain is just pops stuff up. For it can be from a movie and we just remember it. We think it happened to us. It's a thing. But I say all that to say that it is a thing where our brain does hide stuff from us, and then something will trigger us, and all of a sudden that memory will come back. But it will be a memory that we cannot remember. After it happens, we don't remember anymore. And we're just kind of like, "Well, I don't know what happened during that period." And it could just be that you saw that period as a time that was too stressful and harmful for you to keep carrying it in your everyday life.
Yeah, I believe that's why. I mean, I did go through it, or why I don't remember all that because my brain is like, you don't need to process it. I don't hurt feelings, but I did find it strange that I didn't remember some of the things that happened. I really did find it interesting and strange, but I guess I kind of understand why now.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's with a lot of people who had a lot of trauma, or even not a lot of trauma, because again, we have people that experience extreme trauma, like war and witnessing a very violent death and stuff like that, and they remember it. And we're like, okay, then why in their brains? We don't know. It works really weird. The conscious and unconscious, we still have not figured out how it works. But you will meet a lot of people who they like, girl, I don't really don't remember my childhood. And it's always one of those things where you're like, okay. There might have been some things that happened back then, girl. Like, maybe don't touch that. You're gonna get triggered one day, remembered, but it's okay. This is Jenga. Let's not pull on too many blocks. But yeah, so probably is your brain like just protecting you. Also, though, it messes up memory, but yeah, it also messes up your blood pressure, which I thought was weird. Emotional avoidance, for some reason, also messes with your blood pressure, is what research showed. Blood pressure is like stress, right? So that makes sense to me too, that talks about it raises your blood pressure, because avoiding something, taking the act to mentally have to avoid big things like that all the time, that is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you avoid it, you're not releasing it. So it's like it just keeps building up. It keeps building up into a bigger and bigger snowball that you're holding on to. Which goes back into the other thing, is that you always end up releasing it one way or another. Like you can't avoid it for life. It's always going to end up coming to a point you have to eventually feel that feeling. And they say the more you hold it in, the worse it will be when you finally have to stop avoiding it. So if I'm avoiding issues with like abandonment, right? It's going to play itself out in other ways. It's going to play itself out in my work. It's going to play itself out in relationships. And eventually it's going to be to a point where I'm like, okay, I want to settle down, but this thing keeps popping up. You're eventually going to have to deal with it, but you put it off so long, the harder it's going to be to work through it. Even with stuff like at your job, if I avoid criticism and stuff, guess what? Someone's always going to criticize me. So if I don't learn how to handle it now, like, okay, it's harder to learn how to handle criticism at 40 than it is to learn it at 6. And then just have that skill as you grow through life.
No.
Because, it's the whole can't teach a dog new tricks type thing. It's harder to teach you something when you have 40, 30, 20 years of using the old system. Because you're going to want to revert back to that, especially when a new way of doing something is hard. Learning to sit with your feelings is hard. So you're going to want to, if you've been for 30 years escaping it, you're going to want to, even if you're like, okay, I'm going to sit through it, I'm going to sit through it. And this is day 3 of me sitting through it. This is day 4 of me sitting through it. There's going to be times where you fall off the wagon and you're going to revert because you have 20 years of reverting and doing it another way. Versus again, when you're younger, if I only got 6 years of doing this, it's easier for me to learn. Which is why I think it's also really important to work with your kids on emotional regulation. When your kid is crying, let your kid cry. Stop telling them, shut up. Stop telling them, stop crying. Let them cry. And then go to them and go, okay, can you tell mommy or daddy why you were crying? What was wrong? Okay, that didn't feel good. Okay, tell me why it didn't feel good. Oh man, that sounds really horrible. I am so sorry that happened, but you know what? That's gone. Like learning to talk to your kids through those feelings, you do so much better for them when you started off when they're a toddler than trying to teach them when they're 17 and you're wondering why everything ticks them off and they are constantly flying into a rage. Well, you never told them how to handle anger when they were 2. Every time they cried, you told them to shut up and you sent them to their room. Well, guess what? Now they're older, they're taller than you, and now they want to fight you when you try to send them to the room. So now here we are. Like, these are things we gotta teach when we're younger. Also, let me throw it out there. I'm still experimenting with this, so don't like take my advice full on. If my daughter could come in here and talk, she'd be like, "Oh, so we talking about things now? 'Cause when I was crying in the JC Penney's, you told me to be quiet." So I'm still working on myself. Definitely.
Stop on it right now.
You are embarrassing me, okay?
Me too.
But try to do it more actively, more proactively.
We're new. We're
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I took my daughter to a pumpkin patch like last month. And when it was time to leave, she acted a whole mess. Like flew out, screaming, crying. Like there's cars passing us because we had to like walk back to the parking lot. And the whole time I was just like smiling and like slowly whisper in her ear, you know I'm gonna whoop you when we get in the car, right? I suggest you stop. I suggest you stop if you don't want you gonna act out. Guess what? I'm gonna act out as soon as we get away from people.
right.
We definitely had that moment. And then I got to the car and I felt bad. I was like, I can't tell you I'm going to whoop you because you're having an emotional reaction. So she did get a whooping. She got a stern talking to. And we had conversations about our feelings, about why we can't do that. And she did it again the next week when we went out. It's okay. We are trying our hardest to not use whooping as a mechanism of trying to change behavior. It is hard, but we're trying.
All we can do is try.
Yeah. So it just goes back to a lot of the professionals saying like, just like we have to regulate other physical parts of our body, you have to regulate your blood pressure levels. You have to regulate your sugar intake. There's certain things you have to regulate to keep yourself healthy and your body running. You can decide if you have diabetes, you can decide like, I know I can't eat sugar like this. I'm still going to. Well, okay, cool, but you're still going to get your leg amputated. Like that's how it is also with emotional regulation. Like there's certain things that you have to process, you have to do, you have to learn to regulate. And it's like, yes, you can avoid them, but guess what? You are cutting off a certain level of your growth. If you do not learn to regulation, you are going to cut off your personal growth and development as a human being. And sometimes that's irreversible. Sometimes you can get to a level where it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should say it's irreversible. But the longer you go on, the harder it is to reverse the side effects of the damage you already caused. Okay. So before we wrap up, Meek, can you think of an actual like situation where there was a particular emotion that you tried to avoid, a very particular situation, as emotion you tried to avoid, and it created a bigger problem for you? Like avoiding it made it a bigger problem than if you would have just sat with whatever that feeling was, whatever that emotion was, whatever that thing was you were trying to avoid.
Mhm.
You want me to give you an example?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, and I know I've talked about this like this whole episode, but for me, again, it was the emotions thing. For a long time, again, I didn't like feeling too big of emotions, so I just avoided them. And again, last year, like it started like last year, February, but it got intense like after my birthday in May. But essentially, with like me, it became this whole thing of like for the last year and a half, again, yeah, I couldn't listen to music for like 8 months. It got really intense to the point that I went through the hardest like depressive episode I have ever been through in my life. I yeah, I went through the hardest depressive episode I've been through in my life. I had not been on like antidepressants or anything like that, for a decade. Ended up going back on antidepressants. It messed with my sleep. I had insomnia for a year and a half. And again, not that cute insomnia where it's like, oh, I only got 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep. Like I was having whole 48 hours where I was not sleeping on Ambien. Like they would give me Ambien and I was staying up 48 hours. And a lot of times, like I did a sleep study and everything, and they could not figure it out. And it was finally like to the point where I was like, oh, yeah, this is because I need to get this emotional stuff down. Like this is now it started affecting my everyday life. Like again, I took off dating because I was just like, I can't deal I can't deal with these men on top of that. Like, that's not going to help with emotional regulation. That is going to do. I definitely am not going to use my new skills if I add a person to this. But for me, avoiding it for so long, like basically 29 years, avoiding it for so long, it literally took over 2 years of my life. About to be 2 years of my life, I have been dedicating to learning about how to feel, about learning how to process my emotions, about learning how to stuff that emotional regulation that I should have learned before I turned 10. And it's been like 2 years of me, about to be 2 years of me just learn. Like it's literally been the only thing going on in my life for the last 2 years. Like whenever me and Neat do updates, if you ever wonder why, I'm like, yeah, I didn't do nothing. It's because that's what I was doing. Learning to emotionally regulate. It literally has taken over every area of my life. So that would be mine.
I don't think mine is as big, or uh, I think I avoid the emotion. I think I avoid the emotions of making it known that I lost a big thing, and it's just like I avoid the emotions of trying to open up again, I guess.
Hmm.
And when I'm like trying to open up again, I'm starting to notice that it's like messing up relationships where I'm scared to like get into relationships because I don't know how to operate in them. Or I'm avoiding like trying to build because I'm like scared I'm scared I'm not gonna get what I need out of it, or if I fall for this person that it won't last or it's taken away. So
It sounds like it's vulnerability. You're avoiding vulnerability.
there you go.
Mm,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I don't know what that is anymore. I
girl.
don't know what that level of vulnerability is. I don't know like how to feel confident. It's like I'm trying to figure it out. Like in my past, I was so confident in who I was and how to be vulnerable with with the people that, I really love. Even like friendships and relationships, but in relationships or in romantic relationships, I was confident in the person that I was.
Mhm.
I don't have that level of confidence at all anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know how to be vulnerable, or should I be vulnerable, or how to be vulnerable. Shit, I don't even know how to flirt. So it's just like that is my challenge. And it's just like I'm still running away from it. And I know it's something that I want. I know it's something that I crave, but I don't even know. I probably have a panic attack if it comes time to express all of that and be free to do it because I don't know how that looks. I don't know how that feels anymore. And I'm running away from doing the work to figure it out. That makes sense.
No, it does. I
And
don't
then I let
know.
people in. I let guys in. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to help either, but I need to figure it out. And then it comes a time I might let people in on their terms. But this is not what I want. So that's breaking me down even more. It's making me even more pissed. And so I'm back at square one again. So it's a lot of emotion. So then that's you know what? I'm just gonna avoid everything altogether and not talk to anybody. So it's just hard. It's just like that's where I'm at right now. And it's not helping anything at all. That's a lot, sorry.
No, it's just my response is ... question mark, because I don't know. Like I have nothing to give in that area. I have nothing. I don't even have a comment to response because I'm just like, yeah, all of that. I agree. Me too. What conclusion? Where are we at?
But then again, it's all that on top of the non availability that we have right now that I feel that needs to be. I don't feel it's out me. It's like if somebody could, I don't know. It's just like I feel like guys these days are in my head. Like they got their stuff going on anyway. So that's on the other side of it. Is like, who cares if I can't figure it out? Because y'all ain't work figuring it out for you.
First of all, I told you each episode we get more male followers.
No, I didn't want to say that. That's how I feel.
And I would like to not have messages from them in the inbox. Challenging. Like, yeah, I also dated this one girl at kindergarten that broke my wrist. Like, y'all also.
Yeah, I was gonna be quiet about that one, but it had.
No. But if y'all could send us a message and give us a tutorial on how that vulnerability stuff works, that'd be great because I don't know. I can give you a textbook version of how that works. I don't know how to apply it.
No. I am learning to speak up. Like I am learning to speak up in the moment.
You are.
And talk it out. And maybe that and maybe that brings stuff to the table. It was a situation recently where I spoke up on some things that, were bothering me. And usually I just let it ride. I get mad. I just forget it. It's not worth it. But in bringing it up, we could talk through it. You can see, I see his perspective. He see mine. We understand how to go forward. So, but in the past, I could just guess all these things and blame myself, blame that person. But I think that's what I have to do and being vulnerable is just straight up say that hurt my feelings. This is how I took from what you told me. I didn't like that, how that made me feel. Could you explain where you were coming from? Okay, I understand that. I understand that better, but this is how I need you to come at me from now on. These are the values that I'm laying out for you from now on. And I understand where you're coming from, and we're going to just go from there. And that kind of helps. So I don't really see myself doing that a lot in the past. And I guess that could be a step to being vulnerable, I guess.
That's a step to not doing the whole emotional avoidance thing, though, because you're confronting it head on.
That was my first time doing that. And it felt open to do it. That's why I'm trying to make the steps to do better. Usually, like, I'm in a storm, I'm in a situation, and then all of a sudden I just start doing little things, and I just find my way out of it. And I'm like, dang, I don't know how I got out of it, but I'm happy. I got out of it, and I figured it out. I don't remember the step, but I remember all of a sudden I just was like, you know what, you're going to take a minute. And I figured it out.
She like telling me things after it happens. They'd be like, yeah, and
Yes.
this. I'm like, wait, how did we get here? I don't know. But this is where I am now. Like, okay, Nick, okay. Don't know how we got here either.
But we made it.
We made it. Well, I'm proud of you. And that is a really big step. And that is like a big part of doing the emotional avoidance stuff is confronting those feelings, even when it's awkward and it hurts. And it's like, okay, but what if they tell me something? They respond in a way I don't like. Okay. And now we learn how to handle when people respond in ways we don't like. And now we have that skill in our pocket. It's fine. It'll be better the next time. And if it's not better, guess what? We'll learn how to deal with it better for the next time. Unfortunately, stuff happens. It happens more. You're going to be disappointed more than once. So at least by not avoiding it, you learn how to deal with it better each time. So I am very, very proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
I have mine has mostly been learning how to do it within myself, like learning how to confront my feelings within myself instead of avoiding them myself. I have not actually tested it out on humans, other than me. So I'm curious to see how that works. Uh, I would very much like for you, if I ever, I gotta stop saying if ever, when I eventually test it out on another human being, for you to remind me, like when I text you, you're like, oh, how's things going with you? And kiss. And I'm like, girl, I ended it. I need you to remind me, like, okay, did you discuss why? I'm gonna be like, no. You're like, okay, so maybe you should unblock and then let him know why that happened. But yes, so I have not got that far. I have not been talking to human beings, but I have definitely just me working out for myself and learning to confront it with myself and stopping myself when stuff is happening and be like, okay, why do you have this high anxious feeling right now? Why do you have the feeling to get up and leave, to end this, to stop doing whatever it is I'm doing? And then I have to sit there and be like, oh, okay, because I feel like I'm not doing a good job at this. Okay, well, why don't you feel like you're doing a good job? Because I'm used to getting praise for blah, 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 blah. And I'm not getting praise for this. And this person may ask me this, and it sounds like they were questioning me, and it made me feel like they think I'm not good at this. And because they don't feel like I'm not good at this, that's challenging my self worth or whatever, whatever. Like I now go through the process right then and there. And I think that's why I am now at the point where, like, I hit you up the other
Right.
day where I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really emotional. I'm probably going to cry later. And then it's fine. I'll be fine. And I'll just go through. Like, I'm now at that point where I'm just like, yeah, I'm just be like, okay, why are we crying? Okay. Is this why we're feeling sad? Fine. Feel sad. And now put on Rick and Morty. Like, that is just my process now. Um, so not quite there with other people, but I am doing that within myself. And like you, like I'm proud of myself for even getting that far because that was not a thing. That was
Yeah.
not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to music again. I listen to music again. So
Yeah, we had those moments that you can like just find joy in those situations. It makes it better to keep doing the work to find those little moments. And I think it just will help along the way.
I agree.
We're always growing and stuff.
I think so. I think so. So, with that being it, the quick wrap up is the way to handle situations instead when you feel you want to avoid something emotion, you want to just be like, no, I'm gonna avoid that. Positive thoughts only. The way to handle it correctly is to acknowledge that feeling, confront that feeling, allow yourself to feel that feeling, and then try to get to the bottom of it, try to understand it. And you might not always be able to understand why something triggers you so much. You might not always be able to understand why something feels so uncomfortable, why you really don't like that. And so don't stress yourself out if you're like, I really have no idea why Barney triggers me. Like, we don't know. Girl, that's something unconscious that your mind has decided you should not know. And that's fine. Now you know Barney is a trigger. And now you know how to handle that. Like, okay, well, I can't listen to Barney because I know it triggers me. It brings up something deep unconscious, blah, 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 blah. And that's not one of those emotional avoidance, that's a trigger avoidance. I want to be very clear that a trigger avoidance and emotional avoidance are two different things. It is okay to avoid triggers. It's actually healthy to avoid triggers, things that you know that's going to cause a complete and total meltdown that you don't need to do. For example, PTSD. Okay, you might hear fireworks and it triggers you. It's okay to then be like, okay, during the 4th of July, I'm going to stay indoors. I'm going to do something like go to the movies. That's okay. That's trigger avoidance. That's a completely different thing. Emotional avoidance is more like whatever my partner decides that they want to hang out with their friends without me. I know that makes me want to throw like a whole tantrum. So I just ignore them when they say that. And then I won't talk to them for days. Like, nope, that's something you need to confront. You need to confront that. It sounds like you are trying to avoid the fact that you have codependent feelings and you don't want to address that. And that's something that need to be addressed. They're very completely different things. Let's not confuse them. So with this, it is try to understand it, but understand that not all things you are going to understand right away, and that that's okay. Just allow yourself to learn how to plant your feet firmly and not run for those feelings, and allowing yourself to feel those feelings. Another big thing that they say is once you figure the cause, it doesn't mean you have to stay there in that bad feeling. Allow yourself to do self care. Allow yourself to, you can have that feeling and it was bad, and then you still allow yourself to do self care. You still allow yourself to then be like, oh, that was sad and I want ice cream. That is fine. You don't have to sit and punish yourself. It's not about emotional masochism or anything like that. It's all about growth. And so if you need to afterwards then nurture yourself afterwards. And allow, just, it's more about allowing yourself to have that experience and not deny yourself of experiences just because they do not fit the positive vibes only aesthetic.
instead of fighting it.
Yes, yes, presence, grounding is very, very, very important because a lot of times emotional avoidance is about fleeting the present moment out of escapism and trying to flee to another moment. And you do need to ground yourself. You need to be present for what you're experiencing. You need to not allow yourself to emotionally detach, to let your mind float away so you don't have to deal with whatever is going on. It's a very big part of it. Before we wrap up, anything else, Neat?
No, I think that's all I got.
All right, guys. Well, then, other than that, that is all we have for today. Don't forget, next week is our last episode of the season. So if you have not already caught up, I ask that you please do go ahead and catch up. Share the Instagram page, share the podcast episodes. Definitely do that if you can. If you're listening on Apple, please go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Even though this will be the last episode of the season, we are coming back in the new year, the first week of January. We will have season 2 starting. Also, we will be posting on the page during that whole time as well. Other than that, that is all we have. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye.
All right.